Hi, my name is Jordan Rudess. Welcome to my video. I've been playing the keyboard since I was 7 years old. I started out playing a lot of classical music and discovered the synthesizer along the path when I was about 17 or 18. And during this video, I'm going to be taking you through some different techniques that I've developed along the way. They include compositional techniques, improvisational techniques, rhythmic, and also just technical skills with the keyboard. I've had the opportunity to play with a lot of very good musicians. Most recently, the bands I've been in are the Liquid Tension Experiment and my own Rudess Morgenstein project. But I've also played with groups like the Dixie Dregs and the Paul Winter Consort. I'd like to share with you some of these ideas that I've developed over the next period of time. Let's go.
I'd like to introduce you to some of the ways that I think about playing leads and playing melodies. The groove that we were just hearing is what I call like a Dregsy groove. And I learned a lot when I joined the Dregs, in the sense that there's a lot of places in the music where there are these 8 or 16 bar phrases where it's time for somebody to take a lead. And if something is cooking and it stays in one key for a while, like it stays in the key of D, like this jam we were just listening to, what are you going to do over that many measures? Well, for one thing, it's really important for any player, whether they're playing the guitar, or whether they're playing the keyboard or any other instrument, to know the blues scales, because the blues scales are really the key to playing any kind of, well, rock or jazz or pop music. A lot of times the blues scale is used by itself or in addition to other kinds of modes that might be mixed in. So let me tell you the way that I'm thinking about what I just did. For one thing, of course, the blues scale is the basic structure of what it is, the D blues scale. Okay, for those of you who don't know what a blues scale is comprised of, basically it's the root, the minor third, the fourth, the flatted fifth, the fifth, the seventh, and again the root. So, now what makes it sound kind of cool on a keyboard like this, or an instrument where you can bend, like a guitar or a wind instrument, is to actually bend some of the notes. And that's where my pitch wheel and my ribbon comes into play. Like bending from the fourth to the fifth is a good sound, or even playing around with that flatted fifth from the fourth, like. It's just a way of achieving tension as you go to the actual fifth. So you can either go to the flatted, or another typical bend would be to bend from the seventh to the top octave, because of course the seventh, just like when we were studying the bass, leads to the top root. So here's the seventh, bending to the top. So, and a typical bend, one of the first things I learned was like considered like the Jan Hammer bend, which is. So a good way to practice might be to just go. It's kind of a three rhythm. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll incorporate bends, like I'll bend into the seventh from the sixth, just for a different sound, like this. I'll lead up to it. Whereas the sixth itself is not necessarily a step I would use in a traditional blues scale, because that would sound like. But I would use it to bend. Here's the fourth going into the fifth. and even the second, which is not part of the basic scale that I laid out, but that bending into the third. So some of these little things just to keep it interesting. Of course, if you want to check out some of the basic fingerings for the blues scales, please visit my website and you'll see a number of the scales there with some recommended, suggested fingerings. Let's take a really close look at what's happening with the wheel. Okay, so we'll use the D blues scale. And we'll start on the fifth, the A. Now we're going to bend into the fifth by playing the fourth, the G, and bend to the... Now, my wheel is set right now to do a whole step, and that's a pretty common default on most synthesizers. It can be changed, and sometimes, as a matter of fact, on a wheel I'll use a minor third, but most of the time I'll use the whole step. If I want more, I can use my ribbon and do a bigger bend. So here's a couple things you could do. Play the fifth, play the fourth, grab the wheel and push it up to the fifth, and then bring it back. If you're using a joystick, it's just a matter of playing the fifth, playing the fourth, moving the joystick, and bringing it back. The best bet is to do it in some kind of a rhythm. Up and back. Fifth, up and back. So here's from the root. Up and back. Root, seventh, up and back. The other thing that I'll do with the wheel, and you can do this with the joystick as well, is when I hold a note, like a guitar, if a guitar player is holding a note, he's not just going to sit there and let the note hang still. There's always going to be some kind of vibrato. So that's what I'll do with the wheel. The common thing to do is to do that with a mod wheel, but if you use the mod wheel, you're always going to be limited to whatever the programmer back at Kurzweil or Korg or Roland or whatever decided for you. But I think it's much cooler, and it is much cooler, to be able to control the vibrato in real time with your hands. So I'll start to shake. You can control the width of it. So if you're looking for a very cool rock approach, it might be very wide. And sometimes it's cool to do it a little slower than you might think is the right way. A lot of times the pre-programmed vibrato is more like a little faster. But the cool rock vibrato, really, if you listen, is slower. So I really recommend not only practicing your bends, but also practice your vibrato. "95% of what I play is using this kind of close voice leading. And what that basically means is that, let's say I'm on a C chord, and I know I want to get to an A minor. I'll find the closest place to connect the two chords. So in this case, I only have to change one note to make the transition. So as I'm playing along, then if I want to get to an F chord, I simply move one note again. I'm always looking for this kind of voice leading when I'm playing to keep the music smooth. Even if I'm playing something with a melody, and the melody stretches out in the right hand, I'll usually find a chord that fits below it, like So notice that I'm playing the melody, often with my top finger, and positioning the chord underneath. Here's another example. So no matter how fancy or simple I get, this concept of keeping the chords in close proximity remains throughout. And I find in most music that really is the case. So I'd like to actually show you an exercise that will help you to get started, to put the chords together and find the chords in the different inversions. This exercise starts on a C chord. And what we're going to do is we're going to play a major chord, and then we're going to play a minor chord. First the C chord, and then it's going to go to the relative minor, which in the key of C, A minor is the relative minor. So I find the closest place to connect the chords. And in every case in this exercise, it'll just be a question of moving one note. So you play the C, then you go to the relative minor, which is A minor. And then we're going to go down a major third in the left hand from A to F and go to an F chord. So there's one move. And now we're going to go to the relative minor of F major, which is D minor, by moving down a minor third here. And then this is the cycle. Skipping it down the octave. And finally it brings you back to C. So it takes you through every one of the major and minor chords. And then after you do that, we'll start the whole exercise from the first position of C, the first inversion. So instead of C, E, G, started on E, G, C. So the second chord will be A minor, but now the first finger to move is the middle finger. We should also note that when you're on the C chord and you move to the A, the voice that's going to change in the right hand is the finger that's going to move to the actual A. So when we go to the F, the one that changes is the E to F. So there's all kinds of interesting little patterns within this pattern to get you going. Now, the next thing I'd like to point out is it's always important to be making music when you're playing any exercise. As a matter of fact, whenever you approach a musical instrument, you should approach it with the idea that, okay, whether it's a technical exercise, a harmonic exercise, now I'm going to make some music. So what can you do with this exercise? For instance, you can treat it like it's an accompaniment pattern. So how would you play an accompaniment pattern? There's a lot of different ways. If you're just playing a song in back of a singer, or like a Beatles song, or an Elton John song, or anything like that, you're going to want to approach it in a couple of different ways. Here's some examples. Okay, that's one way you could play an accompaniment pattern. But what about this? Or this. Or even this. Or so there's unlimited ways to play a pattern just with using this simple chord. And that's what I'd like to stress with any music that you're going to make, is when you're playing my exercises especially, try to make music. Pick a pattern and hold that pattern for a couple chords. Or play that pattern through the whole exercise and then pick the other pattern. And play that cycle through the whole progression. But be creative and always try to think, how can I achieve something else? How can I stretch this a little bit? And try to keep a click going too, because that'll keep you kind of forced to think quickly and train your mind. Get a click that you can, start with and actually do the exercise. And then as you get better at it, you can make the click a little faster. So you'll be flying through it and really jamming. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the way that I developed my skill with chords. When I was very young, I guess the first chords that I learned are these major and minor chords, and kind of found them in all the different inversions. But as I was growing older and hearing different kinds of music, what happened was that I would hear a particular kind of chord. Like I remember when I first heard a major chord over like an altered bass. For instance, something like this, where you have the 5 chord, I'm playing an F, but I've got a C chord on top. Okay, so like here's a B flat chord with an E flat bass. And there's all kinds of ways you can do it. You can play the 5 over the 1, you can play the 2 over the 1, the 4, this is the 4, the 7. On my website, you'll be able to find examples of different patterns that will make use of this kind of altered bass thing. But here's a little improvisation using this concept. I'll just start a drum track so we can have a good time here. Another chord that I discovered is the sus chord. That's where you take like a C, you take the 4th and the 5th. I discovered this when listening to Tarkus, E.L.P. Tarkus. Of course, Keith Emerson is very big on sus chords. But same thing. Discover the chord, find it in different positions. And in different inversions. And once you find it, actually try to write a piece. Try to do an improvisation. Here's an improvisation that I'll do that uses sus chords. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's very important to connect your body with your sense of rhythm. A lot of people, musicians that I know, can play very well until you ask them to count something. And it's always apparent to me if they're truly grounded in their rhythm. Like somebody could be playing a 7/8 passage, and I'll say, well, it's not really that convincing. And then if you ask that person to count while they're playing, the whole thing will fall apart. So I recommend to everyone, any musician, to learn how to put rhythm in your body. And how do you do that? Well, for one thing, we can step away from our instrument. Okay? So let's do an exercise now where I'll just be counting the beat and clapping the rhythm. So the first rhythm is it's in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So try this at home. Let's maybe do it a little slower. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Now that we've done that, let's tap the rhythm. You can do it even on the keyboard if you want, like just the 1, 2, 3, 4 part of it. In other words, 1, 2, 3. And we'll use our voice to do the rhythm, like ta 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 ta. So by putting that in your voice and then reversing it and counting while you play it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you start to develop some sense of like a body rhythm. Here's a little rhythm exercise that we can do at home. Follow along with me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a click, then I'm going to tap a particular rhythm, and then you'll take the same amount of space to tap it back to me. So in other words, it'll be like this. 2, 3, 4. Now you. That one again. Okay. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. So just to make sure that you can really count while you play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That'll really help your playing a lot. One of the most common questions is, how do you play over the changes? How do you know what to play? So I've kind of analyzed what I do, most of it by ear in a sense, and I think I can give you some good hints on how to look for things to play. For one thing, let's say we have a progression like this, which is F major, a C chord over an E bass, D minor, and B flat. So the groove would be. And that's all. What are you going to play? Well, you have a choice. One is you can analyze the chords that you're playing. In other words, look at the F chord. What notes are in an F chord? Okay, the next chord's a C chord. Let's kind of overlay that. So a C chord is C, E, and G, right? And then, of course, there's a B flat chord here as well. So we've got these notes so far. And what did I leave out? And a D minor. So we found the scale, basically, by looking at the chords that are in the progression and analyzing all of them. All together we've made a scale. So if I try that scale, it works very nicely, but it's very major and it's very plain sounding. Here's what I'd like to recommend. If you have a progression like this, it's in a really in a major key, try using the relative minor blues scale. So in F major, the relative minor, you would find it by going a minor third down from F, saying, oh, D is the relative minor. So what is the D blues scale? Well, we just looked at the D blues scale in the first example, so that's this. But how does that sound over this? I'm going to start the D blues scale on an F. So the F is the root, but I'm using the notes of the D blues scale. It's perfect. It's really the right sound. So what you can do is you can mix up the major idea, maybe for the melody. Let's make up a melody, anything. So that's what you will do. You'll also notice, I don't want to keep anything a total mystery here, but like when I'm playing a piano sound with a bluesy type scale, I do this kind of slippery thing. And this is something they definitely didn't teach me at Juilliard, but it's something you have to learn along the way. It's where I'll take my third finger or my second finger and just kind of slide off the note like this. So I'm sliding from, in this case, the flat 5 of the D blues scale into the major third here of the key of F. Another nice slide here would be from a C sharp to a D. So from the D blues scale perspective, you're sliding into the root. It's almost like if you were to bend. Now, usually you don't bend piano sounds, so, but this one goes. And bending or sliding into the fifth. So that's the piano player's way of really bending.
I'd like to give a little insight on how to create a bass line, both in rock and in jazz. Let's look at creating a rock bass line first, especially if you just want to groove and have something that really sounds good. It's important to realize some of the things that bass players do. And as a keyboardist, and with today's technology, a lot of times we find ourselves creating a whole orchestration. So let's take a look. First of all, the octave is the most important interval in a bass line. A lot of times, bass players will simply just take the octave and very much focus on the rhythm between the top octave and the bottom octave. The second most important thing, I would say, is the fifth. So if you're playing in E, let's say, you could play root, fifth, octave. So and so it's amazing to think of how many different patterns can be created, even with just a few notes. Like if I start my little drum pattern and just take the root, the fifth, and the top octave. And you can keep on inventing. Just because you're only using like 2 notes in this case doesn't mean you can't be very creative and even imply different styles. The next interval I'd like to bring into the picture is the 7th. So in E, we're going to take the low E, a D, and an E. Now let's add that with the 5th. We're basically starting to outline a pentatonic scale.
But just with those notes now, we can get effects like this. It would be great to get a rhythm going now that we've already discussed rhythm, and actually try your hand at looping a bass line, creating something that would go for like 2 measures, and then without stopping the count, to go on and create a different pattern. Something like this. So you would, and again, now do something else. Now something else. This kind of practice would be very helpful and also help with your improvisational skills. Let's look at what I consider to be like the next most important interval in creating a bass line, which is the 4th. So in E, you would play an A. The interesting thing about this whole thing is that you'll notice that I started out by showing you the intervals that were most spread out. On any instrument that's playing in a low register, you'll want to have the intervals spread out. It's kind of like if you take a piano sound and you would play a chord like down here. I mean, certainly it's been done in some Beethoven stuff where he just plays a very thick chord. But in most music, most popular music especially, what happens is that the low register will be actually spread, whether it's a piano sound where I'd be playing like root, 5th, and then the 10th, or a bass sound where as I said, the octave would be the most important thing. So then as you're getting more busy in the bass, you could add the extra notes. So now let's add the 3rd to it, the minor 3rd, E, G. So our notes are E, G, A, B, D, and E. And I would say we have pretty much a complete palette of notes to really do a lot of things. So again, what I recommend is start your drum groove, and take a tempo that you can continue making up a bass line, and just get something for 2 measures, and then without stopping, change it to the next idea that you have. Take a look at this whole walking bass idea. It's a little bit different than the rock approach. In this approach, it's called walking bass because it simply does that. And we have to examine the term first, I think, to understand what should happen. Basically, in this bass line, there's a definite direction the whole time you're playing. And the walking idea is usually constructed by playing almost in a scalular fashion, like. But where are you walking to? That's the whole consideration. Let's say we've got a G-type blues progression, and we're going to take 8 beats, like, till we get to C. So you figure you've got 4 beats to kind of linger around G. And in that case, you don't have to be so concerned with the way you're going to slide into C for the first 4 beats. So you could. But after that, you've got to really approach your C. So let's walk at that point to the C from where I am. So what happens while I'm improvising, and what I started out with was totally an improvisation, is that I let it flow for the first 4 beats, and I see where I am in that improvisation, and then walk my way to the next chord. Let's do it again. Here I go to the C. So somehow I have to figure, how am I going to get there? So if I'm up here, and I've got 4 more beats, I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, and land, or 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no rule per se about how you're going to get there, but it's just important to realize that you are going to get there. So if you're in G, you should also look at what are the real passing tones. In this case, like an E flat is going to be a note that doesn't necessarily belong to the chord, so we're going to pass through that quickly. There's no better way to use passing tones than in a walking bass, because you could play chromatically like this. but you have to get to the C, and here I am with it to go, so I'll jump down to the G. So as long as you keep in your mind where you're going and you just keep walking in the right direction, you can create this kind of bass. People very often come up to me and say, well, how do you develop independence of the hands? Not necessarily independence of the fingers, but how do you do one thing with the left hand and another thing with the right? Well, this is something that's very important as a keyboard player, so you can do things like play a bass part and play a separate melody harmony section with the right hand. And what I did to develop my independence is developed an exercise that's kind of like a mixture of independence of the hands and also an ear training exercise. Basically, what you want to do is to be able to connect your thought process, or even like your musical ear, to your fingers. And how do you do that? Well, a big part of that is actually singing, whether that's out loud, which I recommend, or to yourself. So here's what we're going to do. Try this. Let's take a very simple bass line, like just D, A, D, A, just like that. Now you'll probably want to try this with a click, so that will make you feel very stable and very comfortable. And play it until you really feel like it's rock solid and you can't go wrong. Then, in the right hand, begin playing a melody. At first, don't make big skips like, because probably what will happen is you'll disconnect your ear mind to your hand. But if you play scalular, like and you'll know at home when you're on top of it and when you're kind of losing it, because you'll just feel it. So a very comfortable tempo, and sing while you play, and play up and down. Don't make big skips, and just try it. You might say, oh, that doesn't sound right. And you're also your own judge. What sounds good, what doesn't? Maybe you're into some Arabian scales or something, and you want to go. That might sound fine to you. So be your own judge and go slow. Also, it would be good to practice this with a drum beat, like I have one right here ready to go. So it'll keep you really steady. We're going to have a number of different bass lines for you to try on my website, so I encourage you to go take a look and check it out. Let's look at a couple more right now while we're here. How about trying this one? So if you're more advanced, you can try a pattern in 7, like this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And get it very steady, and keep doing it. And then add your right hand. And don't be afraid to sing, because nobody's around, hopefully, at your house. So that's the kind of thing I recommend. Very steady, very slow at first, a tempo that you can really do it, and then slowly increase your tempo. And this should gain you a lot of ear-to-hand coordination and also independence of the hands. One of the things that's very important in keyboard playing, or on any instrument, is having a technique. And to develop a technique, it's kind of like a sport in the sense that it's a very physical thing. And to be able to make music on a keyboard, you're going to have a lot of control of your hands. There's just no avoiding that. First of all, you want to make that connection between your ear and hands. And if you want your hand to play exactly what you're hearing in your head, your hand better be well equipped to do that. There's a number of things we can look at concerning technique. And the first thing I want to point out is that your main goal is to be able to have enough strength in your finger so that you can keep your arm quiet. You see too many players who play along and there's a lot of motion. But usually to do a riff, you don't necessarily need to be moving around at all with your arm. It's just your finger that's going to actually make the motion. So to be able to do that, you have to get some finger strength. And to get finger strength, you have to practice things that will give you independence of the fingers. Now, I myself practice not only on the keyboard, but I'll also practice on my knee, or I'll practice on a tabletop. And some of the exercises that I'll show you, you can do anywhere. Of course, there's very standard exercises, like things like this one. And all these things are good. But what people forget is that when you're playing these, first of all, you should play them to a metronome so it's very steady. But second of all, you should also change the rhythm of them. Because if you're always accenting, accent, what happens to the other fingers? What about the pinky of your right hand? What I used to do, and still do sometimes, is if I'm playing something like that, I'll go like this. To give some extra attention to the fingers that we know are weaker. For instance, we know that trilling with 3 and 4, or even if you try that, you're going to find that perhaps trilling with 1 and 2 is going to be a lot smoother than 3 and 4, if at this point you can do that at all. So let's take a look at a couple of different exercises. First of all, I like to apply the rhythm method to technique. And what that means to me is that you can take 3 notes. Let's say these 3 notes. And by applying a rhythm to that, like a beat of 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you're playing quarter note, then eighth notes. 2, 3, quarter, eighth, 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 quarter. And what's happening here, you'll notice, is that first we're accenting the C, C, E, D, C, E. Now try it in a 4 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it'll work with any 3-note pattern. How about if we take these fingers and go 1, 2, 3, just that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's take the same first pattern we did and count it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. So what's happening when we do a 5 count, not only are we practicing coordinating our rhythmic skills with our body by counting, but we're also accenting a different note each time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do it with your weaker fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Things like that. And do that kind of exercise on tabletops. If you're in school, you can be, while the teacher is talking, don't tell them that I recommended this. You can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. And try not to get your whole arm involved in the accent either. Don't do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. The temptation will be to do that at first because you don't have the strength in your finger yet to do that. But if you go slowly, and also go back and forth. Don't limit it just to this. I'll put up some other exercises you can do on my website. But for now, also try this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So all it is back and forth, just like that. And you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you get brave, put your left hand and put that on the note and accent, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Some other exercises that I'd like to show you include an exercise that I kind of made out of an original Brahms exercise, which goes a little bit like this. It's just purely chromatic, but you're using all 5 fingers. Remember not to only accent the first beat like this, but also and things like that. But here's my element of that. Besides going up and down chromatically, what you can do is you can take the first part and then you can open up your hand. So it's a real contraction expansion exercise. And that's most of what we do when we're playing the piano. It's all about opening and closing your hand. So this is perfect for that. So you go like this. And then open it up and play like a major 7th chord. And then at the top, we do our chromatic thing again. And then major 7th chord down. So, open up, and then close. And what you can do, if you start getting this together, is try it in mirror imaging, so with both hands. It's a perfect exercise for right before you're about to go on stage and you really need to get your hands limbered up and feeling warm. Here's another one that I find really excellent. And this is an exercise where you'll take different chords. You'll start out with a major 6th chord, C major 6th, and you'll play your 3rd and 5th fingers, G and C, E and A, C and G. So it almost sounds like shortening bread, if you know that. So what you can do is you go. And then you'll move one finger to minor, this one. So now. And then you'll move another finger down to make it diminished. And then finally your last finger to make it dominant. Then when you're done with that, you move to the next key. So you start out with major, then make it minor, and then drop another finger here to make it diminished, and then finally drop this finger to make it dominant of the next key. And when you've got that down, you can add your left hand in a mirror image. So that turns out to be like this. And every now and then when you're doing these kind of things, catch yourself to see if you're getting stiff in your elbow. I find when people are doing things that are challenging, there'll be a lot of tension and it'll be really like, whoa, you know. But if you think about maybe moving your elbow around just a little bit to remind yourself that you want to stay loose. You should be able to like knock your elbow away at any point. So the other thing that I'd like to mention about technique is that it's really important to be able to hold down certain fingers while playing with others. Many years ago I studied from a book called the Phillips technique, and his idea was that you would play a diminished chord like this, kind of feeling like you're pulling in on it. My teacher used to say, imagine there's a little ball under your palm pushing up a little bit, and try to keep your wrist level with the keyboard. And then while you have all that together, just like that, maybe try to lift up this finger while holding down the others. And play it. Now for a real challenge, try doing this one. Remember not to get too tight. So you go through each finger, and then when you've got that down, try doing combinations of fingers like this. And of course, the triplet is one of the most helpful rhythms in technique because it lets you accent both fingers in this, like this, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. You can also try this exercise just by holding down like C, E, F, and G. You can go. One interesting thing, you might not see immediately how this is important, but if you put it into a musical context, like even if I'm playing just regular chords, right now I'm not using any pedal, but it still sounds like the chord is sustaining. That's because I'm only lifting up the fingers that actually need to be lifted up. And to do this, it requires a bit of independence in your fingers. I'd like to take a little time to show you some of the things that I do with the Kurzweil synthesizer. For one, when I play out live, these days I only use a Kurzweil 2500X exclusively. No other racks or modules or anything. Everything is basically in this synthesizer. And of course, this unit is a synthesizer and a sampler, and that's part of what makes it really powerful. It's the merging of those two technologies that really makes it possible for me to do what I do and express myself. Let me show you some examples of some of the kinds of things that I do. It's possible to basically put a different sound on every key, but more than that, I can decide on specific layers per key. So you really have complete control over, okay, I want 3 sounds on the C sharp, and I want 1 sound on the G, and in this area I want another sound. Like for instance, in this sound, I specifically put the percussion underneath the various instruments that come in. You can hear the little tambourine roll, so if I go. So like on this sound, I chose a specific note that I knew I was going to play as part of the chord to bring in this motor sound. There's also like an orchestral hit that happens. And as I play, you have like a pizzicato and a xylophone type sound. So. So that's one of the tricks that I do to actually make happen live all that I play. The other thing that people ask me quite a lot is, how do you change sounds? Well, for me, a sound is called a setup, and the setup consists of a lot of different zones of different sounds. Let's take a look at this sound, where I have. So I've got all my different sounds. Let's let's call that one sound. And then if I step on my little pedal, which is on the floor here, I only use 2 pedals. One of them will cycle me through the different patches that I go to. So as I'm playing along, I can be then hit the pedal and have this new sound that actually has a sound where if I play lightly, I'll get this electric piano. If I hit the key a little bit harder, so as I go, and the little bell effect that you hear is actually assigned just to this key. So that's a little bit about like putting sounds, placing the sounds on the keyboard. Let's talk a little bit about the controllers now. What happens is, a lot of times what I'll do if I want to just like play a lead, I'll run a looped sample. It's my choice to do that sometimes instead of a sequence. I just rely on samples more than I do necessarily a sequence. So in this particular patch, if I play down here, and we can all hear that now my loop is running, and it will keep running until I let go of my sustain pedal. And while that's running, I can use my ribbon, I can use my wheels, I can use my slider without affecting that patch at all. It's just a matter of my programming the sound to do exactly what I want it to do. So, and after I pressed that note and I stepped in the sustain pedal, it switched me automatically to a lead sound. So now I can play. So everything that I'm doing does not affect the loop at all. Another very cool thing that you can do with some of the controllers, for instance, you can do this. You can trigger notes on the ribbon. So the ribbon is not only a pitch bender, kind of like if you're thinking along the lines of a guitar, like a whammy bar. I can or I can also have the ribbon kind of do multiple functions. Like the ribbon can bring in an arpeggiation and make the sound pan and change the filter all at the same time. So all these things all together kind of enable me to do what I do in performance. On a sound like this one, I put my special effect in the low register of the keyboard. When I hit that note, it creates that effect, but everywhere else is more pitch-oriented.
What's great about my Kurzweil keyboard is that I can have infinite layering and splitting potential. I can put a different sound on every key, many sounds on one key, a couple sounds on other keys. And with the controllers and the ribbon and the sliders and the pitch wheel, I can bring those sounds in, fade them out, trigger sounds by things like the ribbon. In this example, I'll use the ribbon to actually trigger a sampled slide that I have. The next example shows how I can assign a particular key to a sample like a motor sound that I took, and have other keys in different registers bring in things like pizzicato and some xylophone. This is some of the capability of the Kurzweil synthesizer.
It's been a really great musical journey for me over the last many years, and I was very excited about doing this video and the opportunity to share some of the things that I learned along the way. And I really hope that each and every one of you has been able to grab something out of the video, and you can watch it repeatedly and learn some different things about melodies and leads and bass and rhythms and all those different things. And we look forward to hearing from you, and please check our website because there'll be a lot of examples of the different kinds of things that I presented in the video. Thank you so much for sharing this time with me. Bye-bye.